Hey, y'all, it's Brad Allen and the best sidekick in the business, Mary Lane Sloan, who's letting me do the intro today. And we're at one of the coolest new places on Main Street. It's called the OG Roastery. And we're here with Lance, who's the Director of Public Relations for the Olive Gospel Mission. And we want to learn more about where we're at, what we're drinking, how y'all came to this. Like, I want to know it all because this is probably one of the coolest things I've seen in a very, very long time. So, yeah. Lance, I always come into these things, we joke, like, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, right? So, like, no big words. But first of all, for those that don't know Olive Gospel, you're not from Columbia if you've never heard of Olive Gospel. But if you haven't, what is the mission of Olive Gospel? Then how does this play into it?
Yeah, well, we've been around since 1888. Started a long time ago, obviously over 130 some years. Just ministering to homeless men, essentially, just here on the corner of Taylor Street and Assembly. And over the past 5 years, things have really kind of exploded. We've begun to do ministry to women and children as well. We have a thrift store that raises funds for the mission. Right. And now a roastery, which, you know, as you'd asked that question, I mean, it did start probably the idea was really conceived a few years ago when Mark Davis, a guy who's who's over our men's ministry aspect of the program, went to California and saw kind of a similar concept, not quite as full-blown as this. It was just simply roasting coffee beans. Right. And using that as an opportunity to do two things. The first thing, of course, is fundraising. Yeah. You know, it's a good opportunity to, you know, it's an easy thing that people want, you know, and also the true heart of it was training men how to roast coffee to give them some job skill training. And so he brought that idea back, and this whole area was just kind of this rundown part of Taylor Street that you could literally see from the second floor through to the bottom, you know, just messed up shell of a building. And so we renovated this area and initially just plopped the machine in there to roast coffee. And that's all it was going to be initially. A few years ago, it was we're just going to roast coffee, do bulk coffee sales, train guys how to roast coffee. Yeah. And then things began to develop over time. We said, you know, that's not enough. And, you know, we need to have a cafe. People need to be able to taste the coffee. And so the idea just continued to grow. This whole area ended up being truly renovated. We actually have 2 coffee roasters and a full out, you know, three brew head espresso machine and, you know, all the good stuff. Yeah. So that we could brew the coffee as well as sell it, and also use the entire shop, the whole concept, to train not just in coffee roasting skills, but also in barista skills and customer service and running a register, management training, sales. We want to be able to use this area not just to raise funds, but to be able to train men and women in job skill training, get them back on their feet. So, wow, that's a lot more thought.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, how long has this coffee shop been open?
Yeah, barely 2 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We are super fresh, and you guys are like right on the scene. So,
we try to stay ahead of the curve.
Right. Yeah. No, actually, I got to go shout out to Matt with the Main Street District. Right. We did our podcast a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about the cool new stuff about to open, and they're like, OG Roastery is like about to hit. So we reached out to do that. But for people that are just listening, hi, Mom, because that's the only probably person. But other than that, we're between Taylor and Main Street. I mean, we're between Assembly and Main Street on Taylor, right next to Olive Gospel, like main building. So if you want to find it, what are the hours typically run for this cafe?
Yeah. So Monday through Friday, we're open from 7 to 6. Okay. And then we just open up an hour later on Saturday.
Gotcha.
Closed on Sunday, but rocking the rest of the week. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So would you say that you can get pretty much everything at Starbucks here?
You can get more here.
All right. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I do have a background at Starbucks. I worked for Starbucks in a kind of a middle manager, if you will, for a year or so. And so we did bring a lot of the concepts from Starbucks here, as far as some kind of basic recipes, a lot of the typical things that you would find. But one of the things I wanted to do was kind of go back a little bit more old school and be able to really get people to be able to have a French press again, to have, you know, a pour over that, you know, like you'd get at Drip, for example, in town, another great place. You know, you just take the time with the coffee, truly enjoy it, let it to be an art again, art of real estate. There you go. And so, you know, it's going to be a training. It is a training facility. So we didn't want to just pump out drinks. You know, we want the men and women that work here and that train here to really have a love and a passion for coffee. And so they have the opportunity to really see coffee being made from being green coffee beans that we have in these barrels here to roasting it and learning how to make espresso with it, learning how to make, drip coffee and just different kinds of specialty drinks. And we've got a ton of flavors, and, we do the same kind of, lattes if you get at Starbucks, but with more flavors, Frappuccino type stuff. And, but we just take a little bit more pride in it, I think, and try to.
And I see some pastries in there. Do y'all make those in-house?
I wish I could say we did. We're trying to focus on one thing to let that really be the...
Yeah, that might be a smart thing we should look at some point.
But we keep the prices cheap, too. So it's a good food to have, with a cup of coffee. And our prices are you going to find them to be cheaper than...
Sure.
Than a Starbucks or a competitor. But the great thing about all this too is it's cheap in another way because there's no taxes. We're a nonprofit. Literally every dime you spend here goes right back into the work that we're doing with the men, women, and children that we serve. So it's a great opportunity to know that, hey, if you buy your coffee here, it's going somewhere besides, just your individual pleasure. It's helping somebody.
Sure.
So
if you take all the money you currently spend at Starbucks and start dropping it here, you can make a real impact.
That's true. I will say I'm an iced coffee fiend. I mean, I'm like in the 30 ounces a day, probably iced coffee.
Wow.
And you go to the, it's, what's that, the Trenta? Like, that's my starting coffee.
Yeah.
All that being said, I go to places, I get iced coffee, and sometimes it is just it is for me just overpowering. It's like rocket fuel. And this is really, I like it. It's really well blended. You can drink it at 2 o'clock and not feel like I'm going to be up at 3 a.m. tonight. Like, I really do like the flavor. I know Andrew's back there drinking a flat white something. I don't understand what that is, but it looked good. It looked really good.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the roasting process, because people may not know what roastery is. I've been to Ethiopia a couple of times. I saw some like live coffee beans. That's about the extent of it. But like, what do y'all like? How do y'all do it? Do you import the beans?
Yeah, where do you get the beans from?
Yeah, so we
Start with the bean.
Yeah, well, we have an importer that we work with called Cafe Imports that's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But they bring in green coffee and work directly with the grower from just all over the globe, essentially.
Sure. Yeah. So
we have coffee from South America, from Indonesia, just anywhere that you can get coffee. Africa, obviously, I can't leave out Africa. Probably one of the very best places in the world to get coffee from. Anywhere where the equator is, essentially, that's kind of the coffee belt, if you will, where you get coffee from. So, we've got probably about 10 or 11 different coffees in here right now. Okay. Actually, what we use to make our cold brew is from Guatemala. Okay. It's from this area called Huehuetenango. It just has kind of a nice natural smoothness and fruitiness to it. Yeah. So anyway, we get that coffee in and we roast batches.
It comes in just like green. It lasts forever, or?
Well, I wouldn't say forever.
Sure.
But when you do get coffee, this happens to be fortuitous that this is right here. This is what green coffee looks like. Okay.
Can I smell it?
Absolutely. And that's actually the coffee I'm just referring to from Guatemala. So we get this coffee in like this.
It looks like a lentil.
Yeah, and it just, it smells kind of grassy a little bit, a little slightly fruity, the way that this has been processed. But we roast it in a barrel roaster that we have. It's a 6 kilogram machine that essentially we roast a little over 10 pounds at a time. And kind of the meaning behind our shirts, actually, it starts out green, begins to dry out, turn yellow. Gotcha. And then it goes through a process, just to kind of oversimplify, called the Maillard phase, and then it goes through what we call first crack. Coffee actually cracks like popcorn. It sounds like popcorn when it goes off. And after that stage occurs, basically you have your light, your medium, and your dark roasts. And so depending on how long you roast a coffee, it can actually go into second crack. You truly get a dark roast and so on. If you go too far, you get charcoal.
So the longer you roast it, so if you get like a dark blend coffee, which I tend to drink, that's probably been roasted longer. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. You roasted longer.
Interesting. And then obviously blonde, you barely kind of just get enough roasting to make it crack, and then you're done.
Just go through first crack typically, and then that's where your light roast begins.
I like a lot of crack, cracked out. But So when it comes to coffee, I always thought it was the type of coffee made the blonde roast. But can any coffee be a dark roast? Like any type of coffee bean, I guess.
Absolutely, you can take any kind of coffee and take it to a dark roast. And really, the balance and the argument that you hear from a lot of roasters is, how far do you? Where do you stop?
Sure.
How far do you take this before you pull it out of the oven, so to speak? Right. When is it ready? Because what's interesting about coffee and why I love it is it's a lot like wine because of where the origin of this bean comes from. And so a nice light roast, you're going to taste more the origin of where that coffee came from.
Sure.
But the longer you roast coffee, you begin to lose that. So if this is naturally, tastes like blueberries, for example, the more I roast it, you're not going to taste blueberries after a while. It's all going to begin to taste the same.
Gotcha.
It's going to be roasty, and you'll still have a lot of caramelization kind of flavor.
Sure.
Too much, it's going to be a little smoky. Gotcha. And that's where you get the complaints with a lot of people that say that Starbucks' coffee is burnt.
Yeah.
It's not that it's really burnt. It's just they take a lot of their things to a certain degree that you don't really taste as much of the origin of the coffee itself.
I was always told they burned it on purpose so you would get the flat white drinks and the more expensive lattes and stuff than just the regular old brewed coffee.
Yeah, it's possible. Now there's people roast coffee for different purposes.
Right.
You can roast it for, just like I'm drinking it now, just black.
Right.
Or some of them do what you mentioned so that it pairs well with milk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm telling you, like a little side thing though, having some education classes around because I've been drinking coffee for years. I didn't know half of this
stuff. Have wine classes all the time. You should start offering some coffee classes.
Yeah. So I can't neglect to mention too that, the whole point behind the shirt is not just to show the process of the coffee, but we've kind of our phrase here is transform coffee, transform lives.
Yeah.
So in the same way that coffee is transformed, we're about, transforming lives here. So these men and these women that come in. So, just like that first crack, opens things up, it's just, for some people, it's like, there's a time in their lives where the light bulb goes off and they realize something's got to change. And so we're excited that we get to be a part of that, at the mission in a different creative kind of way.
No, that's awesome. Really great analogy to what Oliver Gospel does. And actually also Toby's Place, right?
Right. Absolutely.
That's the female version of Oliver. Is that said the right way? The women and children ministry of Oliver Gospel?
Yeah. So we have a men's center. We have a women's center. Toby's Place, actually what's exciting too is that the first 3 baristas that we hired were all women, and 2 of those came from Toby's Place. As we've looked for folks to bring into the program here, it's just kind of, that's what the Lord's done. We've just had just a lot of ladies. It's been great and they've been fantastic. And none of them have a background in coffee, which is really interesting. So it's been a really cool thing to be able to see, just how this is making a shape in their lives.
I think it's awesome too, because I hear the gentleman that runs Oliver Gospel on the radio like every couple of episodes and just, telling what the good work's going on here and how people can help out and all that, which is fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of people do this, but also it's another way for people to do it and also, put their money and coffee into a further educational process than maybe just donating $25.
Yeah.
They know this got a little bit. So with that being said, we're right around the holidays, and this should come out sometime soon, hopefully, depending on Andrew's schedule. It's very busy.
I hear you.
But with all that being said, how can people also help Oliver Gospel, Toby's Place, or any other ministries that kind of Oliver Gospel's doing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the greatest things we love to have is folks that are just willing to volunteer, to come and actually be a part of it.
Sure.
We have a lot of volunteer opportunities actually here too. So if you're one of those people that loves coffee, you have the opportunity to kind of come and support that aspect, help bag coffee, help brew coffee.
So what's the best way for somebody to do that? Should they sign up online or call or just walk in the front door? Yeah,
our volunteer person here has set up a great website for us that allows you just to look at the different opportunities and sign up there. It's super easy. You can, like with us, for example, you can just see all the different time slots and say, hey, I want to work this day. I want to work that day. Yeah, it's just really easy. So, but you can serve here, you can serve in the men's area and maybe serve a meal or, there's a million different projects. It seems like that.
Speaking of the holidays, do you guys sell a gift certificate?
We do. We have the gift cards up at the register. One of the things that's been fascinating since we've opened, it's been really difficult to keep up because everyone's deciding, hey, I'm just going to buy like 8 bags at a time, for family members and whatnot. We're actually working on an order for a company today for 130 bags of coffee.
Oh, wow. So I know we're popping around a little bit with gift cards, but also how can people buy coffee? Can they buy it online as well and have it shipped to them? Or they got to pick it up locally or What's that look like?
We are heading that direction.
Gotcha.
We're not quite ready yet.
I feel you, buddy. Trust me. I feel you. Great ideas. You're like, well, we got a couple more steps.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Right. But if, one of the cool things about this place too is that the coffee that you get here is fresh roasted. I mean, you pull anything off the shelf, it's barely been up there, especially right now, like maybe 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So if you do have some kind of order, if you got something you want to get for your family, come on in and let us know, hey, I'd like to get 10 bags of this, 10 bags of that. We'll get that prepared for you and ready. But yes, eventually we're going to look and have like a coffee of the month club or something of that nature. Yeah. Anything you want. Once we get a few more staff in place, we'll be ready to roll with that. So
well, it's funny how Main Street's becoming like craft coffee corridor between yourselves and obviously Inda and Drip, and we also got the 800-pound gorilla down the road as well, Starbucks. But this is like the biggest concentration of like craft coffee that I've seen in a very long time. And the atmosphere is awesome. Obviously, the coffee's great. It's super friendly and COVID friendly. You can tell. I mean, the lady even grabbed my coffee top lid with a napkin to put on. So overly cautious on that. And honestly, being in Columbia for almost 20 years now, like Oliver Gospel's always been a big part, and I'm very appreciative of what y'all have done for the city.
Thank you.
It's amazing. I work out with guys from F3 that do stuff down at the Finley Park, and it's just awesome to see those guys now become friends. They started in the program, and they're great dudes, and that's all a testament to them and the program that y'all run. So thanks.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
So we always like to round out our sessions by asking you if you, of course, you don't have a crystal ball, but what do you envision downtown Columbia looking like in the next 5 years? Or what's something that you would hope to see in the next 5 years?
Downtown Columbia, as far as from our perspective, or just in general?
Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'd love to see even more coffee shops. I'd like to see this kind of multiply and be in some other places. We've already had people asking, like, we've been open 2 months, guys. But I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, it's definitely exploded. It seems like over the last few years. Yeah. I really like just the more opportunities for more restaurants, more food opportunities, things to do. Main Street's just kind of gone like just gangbusters here lately.
I got a question from that, and you may not want to answer this because you might make some people mad. I'll be honest with that. But as Main Street has got
the controversial section of our podcast.
I'm drinking coffee, so I don't have my mask on. But as Main Street's gotten more popular recently, and more people are coming down here, shops are opening, has that put a pinch on y'all a little bit of like bad PR or people just giving y'all the stink eye? Because you are serving the most needy of the citizens that we have, and sometimes people that want to put in nice restaurants and stuff don't always see it the same way. And that's a really loaded question, but if y'all felt that pinch, has it been better?
No, I think things have been better. One of the things that's been really exciting about our new executive director is that he's had a really heart to really engage more than any previous director, quite honestly, with the community. Sure. To really get to know folks so they know what we're about. They know, how we want to help. We want to better the community. Sure. This isn't just a place for men and women to get a meal and a place to stay. I mean, it's a place where we want to turn people's lives around and have them actually contribute to the community. Sure. And so he's constantly out there getting to know more and more folks in the area. And I think when we have those relationships and people realize what our heart is and what we're about, that's really the heartbeat of this too, is that this is bringing what we do out to the community. There was a lot of times where people would wonder what really goes on at the mission besides seeing this big long line of men that would line up along the street to get a meal. Sure. And that's changing. And we're just this is kind of a real big step for us to open up our arms and say, come on in. And, you're going to learn a bit more about us and actually help support the mission just by getting a cup of coffee.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. That's helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on our show today.
My pleasure.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would encourage all of our listeners and viewers to come on down and get a cup of coffee or get a gift card or a bag of coffee for a stocking stuffer. That's right. And keep supporting our local businesses. So thank you so much. And hope you guys will subscribe and check us out for our next podcast.
Awesome. Thanks. Appreciate it, man.